Okay, so someone at the race called out Brad Pitt, but Aston Martin must have heard bad Pitt.
Megan.
There we go.
Welcome back to Break Check. This is episode 33, the post-American Grand Prix. Is it American Grand Prix? United
US
States Grand Prix?
US Grand Prix.
Post-US Grand Prix recap. Good amount of stuff to talk about. Megan, how was your weekend? First and foremost, as always.
My weekend was great. I went to Oxford on Saturday with my roommate. It was really fun. We went to try and see the library that inspired Harry Potter, which I don't know if it was just inspired or they actually used it in the movie, but it would have been incredible, but it was closed for a wedding. So congrats to those people because what a unique place to have it. But it was so old. Like everything is just so old there. And I love history and architecture. So that was really fun. And then I went to a first like Diwali celebration because that Diwali's today, the day that we're recording. But my friend from school, she wanted to get some people together for a nice dinner on Saturday. So I had that Saturday night and Sunday. Yeah, I watched the race. It was like 8 p.m. here. I was very stressed. And today I have no water in my apartment. So that's how my week is starting, but the weekend is great.
That sounds like a really nice weekend, actually. That sounds very fun. Besides the water, I was just telling Megan a story off camera about when me and my friend accidentally turned off his neighbor's water in his old house. But yeah, no, that sounds great. I did a bunch of errands on Saturday. Sunday, my parents came over. We watched the race. We carved some pumpkins.
Aww.
Yeah, so that was really fun. It was me, my parents, my sister, and my girlfriend. I was really happy with how my pumpkin came out. I did just basic eyes, and then I did the Batman logo as the mouth. So I was pretty happy with it.
Creative. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I came up with it all on my own. I didn't Google search it at all.
Okay.
No, I did.
I just stunned. Okay, I was gonna say.
But I did for just freehand permanent marker draw it on the pumpkin, and it came out pretty good. So
good. Yeah, whatever works.
But yeah, no, the race was good. I thought for a second Lewis was gonna have it, but we can get into that later.
Yeah.
Any kind of housekeeping news you want to go over?
Yeah, just a few bits and pieces, nothing too much. Mainly rumors, honestly. But so Logan does have a conditional confirmation of his seat with Williams, which is the condition is if he finishes in the top 5, because that's what he needs to have enough points for the super license. We'll get into his performance a little bit when we talk about qualifying in the race. So I'm going to leave that there. Didn't look too hot in FP1, but Williams is giving all of their remaining test drives to him. So there's that. And then Daniel will likely be a reserve for Red Bull is the other rumor. It seems like he has confirmed that, which I had texted Juan this the other day or yesterday, and I don't know if other people will agree with me or if they like this idea or if they think it'll ever happen. But my understanding is if he's planning to be a reserve for Red Bull in 2023, he could potentially move to AlphaTauri in 2024 and then take Checo's seat in 2025. Now, whether that happens, it's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. But yeah, curious to see how that plays out because I'm assuming if he's going for a top winning seat, he's going for Checo's.
Yeah, I mean that's really the only option unless Lewis retires, or Carlos leaves Ferrari. But I mean, Ferrari has a plethora of junior drivers at any given moment to fill those spots. I do think he's making a play at Checo's seat, which fair play. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Similar to what I was telling you the other day, I think it'll be hard for him. Because obviously, Checo is not the number 1 driver at Red Bull, but he's about as good as Red Bull needs their second driver to be.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like if they can't cite performance and be like you're out of your seat because he's second in the World Driver Championship.
Third now.
Third now. Okay, but him and Leclerc have been flip flopping back and forth. they've won the constructors to 1 year in a row. 1 year in a row. That's just one year. They won the constructors with him.
Yeah.
He's won some races. He
He's yeah.
he just helps out Max at any given moment.
Not that I think Checo's been doing bad. I think this year he's been remarkably better than last year. However, I don't think he's going to get any better. So it really, I think, will depend on if he can maintain this level of performance. Because I think as Ferrari and Mercedes come closer to the performance of the Red Bull car, you'll see Sainz more ahead of Checo. You'll see Russell more ahead of Checo, which honestly has been happening the past few races, other than this race this weekend. So I think Red Bull, that seats the easiest, because I think Checo, of those, if you say 2, 4, 6, like those 6 drivers, I think Checo's at the bottom of those 6. So it is the easiest for him, but it also is going to be hard because he's doing so well this year comparably in his other previous years. So it really will it's kind of banking on him not being consistent in the future years.
Let me add a caveat to what I was saying. I think Checo, how he currently is, it would be hard for him to take the seat. If he gets worse, he gets worse. And I think it's easy to get him out of there, because Red Bull is such a high expectation team that the moment he starts tailing off, I think, there will be rumors. But I do think as like current Checo is, if he's in his prime, even though he's an older driver, he's racing really well. I think if he holds this, like you said, consistency, then I think it's the hardest one to take, because he's as good as he can be without being better than Max.
Yeah.
And that's what Red Bull wants in a second driver.
And it really, too, if say Daniel gets an AlphaTauri seat in 2024, he would have to be beating Checo or like up there with Checo in an AlphaTauri to even be considered to replace him, because that's kind of how they switched Albon and Pierre years ago. Not years ago, like it was 10, but it was like 3. But it was because Albon was pretty much outperforming or close to it compared to Pierre in the lower car. So I think that's how they'll want to look at it in 2024, if that's the situation. But I don't realistically see where Daniel would be ahead, unless this year off is a really good year for him and he's just able to come back swinging. So
I wanted to touch on Williams real quick. Rumors that they are going to be partnering with Porsche.
Yes, I did see that.
I want to talk about, one, what that means for Williams, because that's great. 2, what that might mean for Logan Sargeant, because he might be in a fast car and just not perform.
Which means he's out quicker.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean, though? Like,
yes, no, 100%, because they're going to have higher expectations too of your performance if you're in a better car. If he's in a Williams next year and the Williams is how it is this year, it's kind of like, well, you're doing the best you can with what you got. Or like Haas, like Mick looked great in Haas last year because Haas was 5 seconds behind everyone else. So I think it would put a lot more pressure on Williams, or on Sargeant, sorry. Also, just curious, I'm sure Porsche has ideas of who they would want in their seats too. So I'm kind of interested to see what influence they're going to have when it comes to that in future years. But
they might have a number 1 driver with Albon already. So if he sticks around,
Albon, I would love to see him in a competitive car again. He was in the top 10 for quite a bit. I think he actually finished I don't know if he finished in the top 10. I can't remember now. I think he finished 9th after Alonso's penalty.
After the Alonso,
yeah.
Which I know you wanted to talk about.
Yes, I will. Because I not for once, but I am kind of on Alonso's end of this for the whole situation and for the penalty. But alas.
Did you see they had 82-year-old Mario Andretti get around the track in a McLaren?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, Mario Andretti at 82 years old got around Coda in I think maybe a 5 years ago McLaren. They redid the livery to be this year's. But he got around in a modern F1 car. So
I'll have to go watch that. That's so
it was
cool.
pretty cool. Yeah.
And then 2 other bits of new news which kind of transition into the race and just everything that happened there. Alonso faces a 30-second penalty, which is a 10-second stop and go penalty, and it'll drop him from 7th to 15th. And then Lance Stroll will face a 3-place grid penalty in the next race, which is next weekend in Mexico. And that's due to him causing the collision with Alonso.
Yeah. I would, let me just be blunt. I would have shit myself if I was Alonso. It's so easy for those cars to get air underneath them and just flop into the air. One, that's a testament to how heavy the cars are now. Maybe the boat allegations, the F1 boat allegations have some merit to them because the car didn't take off. And two, like you said, the penalty he got.
So the reason why he got the penalty was because he had a damaged car, or it was too damaged to be continuing to race. Like they needed to replace something. My issue with it is that they never gave him that flag for that during the race, which is to notify them that there was an issue. So the fact that they went back and looked at his car later and then wanted to penalize him then when they could do nothing about it now versus giving them the opportunity to pit and then penalizing them if they didn't, that to me that makes way more sense. So it just seems pretty biased in my opinion, because for Alonso to even go, first of all, for Alonso to still be racing was impressive enough, let alone the mental stability you need to have to see life flash through your eyes when you see the sun because your car is at a 90-degree angle, and then also to like still finish up in points when you had to pit and start over pretty much from the back of the grid. I mean, hats off to him. That's one of the best performances, and just I think solidifies the fact that Alonso is not going anywhere anytime soon, because a guy to perform like that in a situation like that is wildly impressive. And it's a shame that they're giving him this penalty because I don't think he deserves it.
What was he supposed to do? Self-govern himself and just come in and retire from the race? If they don't tell him and they can fix the car back up, yeah, you might as well go back out. And if they did, if they never said no, how's he supposed to know that he's not supposed to? No.
So, what they could have done is just been like, oh, next time, or oh, situations like this. It's not on the team, but rather on the FIA for missing that when they had still half of a race to go and they could see the car, and they should have made the call then and done the flag. But again, that just it's another thing to the lack of accountability with the FIA. So
yeah, interesting to see that they're not afraid to go back and apply punishment to things that happened in the past.
So looking at qualifying and just the testing before the race, there wasn't really too much I wanted to talk about. Just the Sargeant conversation briefly, which I feel like we've talked a lot about. And I actually briefly looked at his history, and I think he spent 1 or 2 years in Formula 2, 1 year in Formula 3, and this year's his first year in Formula 2. One who has the exact same history.
Ooh.
And Yuki. Yuki was hopping 1 year after another. And they're like, oh, he's doing fine in every year. Why not put him in F1?
And we've talked about too how Yuki coming in and experienced in F1, he ended up being like the best case scenario, and he still was struggling quite a bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, I think Yuki had the language barrier as well with his engineers, and I think that had a big impact. And that's something Logan doesn't have to worry about because English is his first language. So he's very lucky in that situation. However, I don't think he is necessarily going to be the fastest or the most consistent driver on the grid, even in a Williams. Comparably. So I cannot wait to see him compared to Albon, because there are times in FP1 it was a few seconds between the two. I think Albon was like P14, P15, and Logan was 19th. So, but also, I wanted to look in this. So if anyone is listening and knows, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do have Jamie Chadwick as a reserve, or not as a reserve, as a test driver as well. So I don't know if that's because she's not necessarily a reserve driver, if she can't do the FP testing. But it would be nice to see her do some testing. Or if it's because she's not like an F2 driver or whatever the case is. But it would have been nice to have her testing a bit and not just have Logan Sargeant pretty much the remainder of the season when they have other people that they could be using.
That would be nice. I think he has to do the remainder of the testing sessions because you get a super license point every time you do one. So to get enough
So
super license points, he has to do the rest.
so they're trying to help him get more
Yeah.
points. Okay.
Yeah. Can I say one thing I'm actually worried about Logan Sargeant with?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a language barrier. Something I'm worried about. And that's why I wish it was a different American going into F1 for the first time in a while. I'm worried about the culture barrier. Americans are so different than the rest of the
Yeah.
world. And so many have such a hard time understanding just how the rest of the world has more in common with each other than America has with them. And Americans just have a very different attitude about things. They have a different way of joking. They have a very different way of acting. And I mean, like you even saw it with the crowd at Austin booing and calling Max and Checo cheaters.
Just crazy.
Everyone on F1 Twitter was like clutching their pearls. That is just a Thursday night football game here.
True.
That's a high school. That's a high school football game here. Americans are insane. And while I do think there's no language barrier, I think there will still be misunderstandings just culture to culture.
No, that's a huge point. I mean, I've noticed like, so for example, in football here, so like soccer, we like soccer, but European football. So they like are very aggressive fans, but they still have like some level of respect to people, which I don't think exists as much in American sports. No. So yeah, very curious to see how that all plays out. I don't know. I'm really torn on it because not to say he's a bad driver. I think he is quite impressive, especially for his first year. But as we've seen before, one decent year in Formula 2 doesn't equate to good performance in Formula 1. And I don't think rushing at finding an American driver is necessarily the best route when they do have other options.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to stop talking so much about this because I get so heated, and two, I mean, I think we'll just have to wait until his performance next year, or if he DNFs in Abu Dhabi or something. We'll see.
I'll cut us some slack because like we're Americans watching a sport that we're heavily outsiders in, and we're finally going to get our first representation in a while. Haas does not count. No one knows what Haas is in America. No. Haas doesn't count. But we're getting our
least American.
and we're getting our first representation in the sport. And it seems like everyone thinks it's going to go well except for most Americans that are into the sport.
A lot of Americans that I've talked to about this have cringed when I've said like Logan Sargeant might be in F1. Like not everyone's that excited about it. So yeah, we'll see. But
do we want to get into the race?
Yes.
I will lead off saying, going back to the cultural differences, I'm not sure a single F1 driver or a single person on the paddock knows what goes on in America. They come to America for these races and lose their goddamn minds. Let me give a shout out to Horsey McHorse, honorary guest in the paddock. That was pretty funny. But the rest of it, it's like, I don't know.
It's COTA is the one American race like I want to go to the most because it is the most stereotypical American. I think even more so than Miami, because it's like when you think of America in the South, like you think cowboys.
But here's the thing: Austin is the least Texas city in Texas.
It's like a mini Madison or Chicago or something.
It's like a tech city.
Yeah. Like Microsoft has an office there, and Apple, and
Spotify's based out of Austin.
Houston would have been more of a Texas city than Austin. And Houston, I don't think would be super fun to race in because it's so swampy. It's very like Miami kind of weather. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I think it would be it's the most American race, so I think America, every time something happens here, they just go they go crazy, and it's entertaining for sure.
It's good content, but as an American, it's like
I wanted to start with the situation with Russell and Sainz because this was Sainz' weekend to win. Like this was his opportunity to secure this. And pretty disappointed with Russell. I don't remember, I haven't seen him say anything or make a statement. Usually when he hits someone, he says it's not his fault. And this time he has said nothing. So maybe he is well aware that it is his fault because it was clear to him that it was Sainz's position and he just kind of ran into it.
He admitted fault.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, come on, dude. Like
later though, on the radio, he said he's cut across me.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? No. Yeah, so pretty sad to see it. I like both drivers, but I think Russell does have a pretty rough history of not taking accountability when it's his bad. So
I don't think he can race wheel to wheel very well.
no. I mean, if you're talking wheel to wheel, Vettel is a driver who could fight wheel to wheel because his performance at the end against Magnussen was insane. Like one of the best overtakes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just like the intensity of it and everything, especially in an Aston Martin. So very great on him. But yeah, when it comes to Russell, I think Russell just gets a little too into it. Same with Stroll. So, but we'll get into that too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, very disappointing for Carlos. I felt awful.
I know, and it just drops him further in the points, and it's not that it's going to make a huge difference, I think, anymore, but it would definitely be good for them, at least against Mercedes and the constructors. So to have him completely out of points when he would have been up there and probably the top 5, if not winning, it sucks. But
yeah.
And then Hamilton, of course, he was so close to winning. Everyone was freaking out. You could hear the crowd. But of course, the Red Bull just has way more of a pace and way more. They're just a better car this year.
Yeah.
So
and Max was on mediums at the end too. Lewis was on old hards. So
and Max, another driver who had some bad luck, an awful pit stop. I mean, just insane to watch. He goes in and it's like, I don't know, something with one of the tires. They had like a fault and they were waiting for another gun. It was like 11 seconds in the pit stop. It should have been only a few. So yeah, it really screwed him. He had to come up from the back, but yeah, still managed to win. So huge props to him for that. It just, again, like him, Alonso and Vettel, and I mean, even Hamilton too. I think they just really showed their quality and their skill this race.
Oh, yeah.
Super entertaining, but yeah.
No, yeah, something I really like about tracks like Coda is the drivers can flex their muscles a little bit. You know, you could tell which drivers are really good. Vettel was out there competing hard. Yeah, he was our driver of the week. I do think Vettel's not done in F1. No. He is driving way too aggressively right now to be, doing a finale.
He could be in the top 10 still, like in terms of standings, if he had a better car. Genuinely, I think he would be competing with Norris up there. I think he would be competing with Ocon up there if their car was just more reliable. And it makes me even more upset that he's retiring. And I just really hope he comes back. And I'm just going to tell myself that he's coming back because I don't understand the leaving F1 when you have talent like that still on the grid.
Porsche Williams.
So I'm saying, put him in there instead of Sargeant. You've got a seat open.
Also, some early signs that the Aston Martin might not be crazy slow next year. The last couple of weeks, they've been picking it up a little.
Yeah. I'm hopeful. I mean, that's the whole reason Vettel moved to Aston Martin is because he expected a faster car. But no, that's a really good point. The last 2 races, they've been pretty good on speed. So I'm excited to see how they do in Mexico. Especially Stroll, he was up in the top 5 for like the first half of the race before the crash.
Yeah, no, definitely. Kind of sucks that their team is disbanding a little now that they're getting, some good results and continuity, but that might have a lot to do with the relationship between Lawrence and Seb. So
I have no idea where we left off.
Yeah, so we just had to take quite a long break in between recording. I don't know where we were, but we can just kind of start talking about whatever.
Yeah.
We were talking about how Aston Martin seems to be going
Yeah.
towards the right direction. Vettel, we don't think he should be retiring.
I wanted to bring up AlphaTauri because I noticed in the race, Yuki was at one point was on mediums and Gasly was on softs, and Yuki had the pace to pass him, and he kept being told to hold back. But it was starting this midfield train in the back where they had like Norris and Mick and like all these people that were lined up, like ready to go. And they weren't able to because they couldn't pass Yuki because Yuki couldn't pass Pierre because they wouldn't let him. And I just think it made also Yuki kind of look bad, which is kind of a shame because I feel like that seems to happen a few times with AlphaTauri where the calls that they make or whatever are kind of more in favor of Pierre, and it hurts Yuki's performance.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to call that out because I felt really bad because I know Yuki gets a lot of flack, especially the last year, and then just the AlphaTauri hasn't been that good this year. But Yuki had better pace this weekend, I think, compared to Pierre, and he really didn't get to show it as much as he should have.
Which you'd think it'd be the other way around. He's their driver that's sticking around next year.
Right, exactly. But I don't know. It was weird. And then they also made a weird call with Mick. But I later found out that it was because Mick had picked up debris from the crash, and so they had to pit him, and he just like the damage it had done, he just wasn't able to get that pace back up. So it's pretty unfortunate because Mick would have finished in points this weekend had that not happened. So also kind of bad because it kind of hurts his career. We don't know what's really going to happen, and hopefully Haas doesn't hold that against him because I don't think that's fair.
Oh, we know what's going to happen.
No, we don't. No, we don't. We'll see.
Yeah, a lot of not like a ton of like besides for like the crashes, not a ton of crazy stuff going on during the race.
No.
Good amount of overtaking, a lot of jockeying. Something I wanted to mention, we've talked about it a ton, but just there is something going on that we don't know about with Daniel and McLaren.
Yeah.
You don't just forget how to drive.
Yeah.
And he looks like the worst driver right now.
Oh my God, he was so behind. Like he just kind of like kind of like when you saw Latifi like dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. Like,
Yeah.
you kind of saw that with Daniel too, and it just seemed like Daniel didn't have that like drive. And I don't know if this is Daniel's way of saying like F you to the team because he also refers to it as like car number 3 or something. He doesn't call it the McLaren. And then he's just having a good time riding horses and shit. Like I don't think he really cares anymore. So I think he's doing everything he legally can do to just have fun and just hang out and just have a good time. But
I think
I
we're
also
gonna
don't.
find something out later.
Yeah, I there's definitely more to it because Daniel has a lot of good character, and I don't think he would be acting like this just because of what had happened. So I don't know. It's really interesting though. I mean,
it's wild.
yeah. I don't know. McLaren, they have a history of not great situations. So
Yeah.
but
He's like, I mean, just based on resume, he's like the 5th best driver on the grid.
oh yeah.
like
there's
didn't
no
forget
reason.
how.
No, there's no reason he should be this low. I think it's a combination of schemy things on McLaren's end. And I also do think it has to do with Daniel's mental health because Daniel does take on, like Lewis, a lot of outside projects. His brand, his wine, not even just like his clothing. I want his wine, but it's like $400. It's never going to be in my budget. So even when I get my master's degree, it's not a splurge for me. So but yeah, no, he has so many other projects. I think there's something about him maybe doing like a Hulu or Amazon show, like an F1 thing is like in rumored. And then his commercials and stuff. So I think he's taking on a lot. And I think his mental health with that, coupled with the social media and things happening at McLaren, he probably legally can't talk about. And just also having to always watch what you say, I'm sure it's taken a huge hit on him. So I think a lot of it does have to do with mental health. And I do hope that this year, hopefully only year off, really does him well, because it seems to me like he just really needs it.
Yeah. Any other teams you want to touch on?
Not really. I was just looking at my notes, and one of my bullet points is just, oh my God, because it was when Vettel was pitted. So
Yeah.
that's really it though. Yeah, I know Lando had some damage from the debris. A lot of those drivers picked up debris from the race, but I want to say how freaking impressive it was for them all to dodge. Because if you watch when Lance was spinning back into the middle of the track, and there was also a tire just free in it too, like
Yeah.
somewhere else, and the way that those drivers have to react so quick and just on their toes all the time in cars going that fast, that heavy, that like any small mistake could be detrimental. It's so impressive, and I think it just, yeah, it really goes to show how much really goes into the drivers, the team, like all of it. So pretty intense. But yeah, I think that covered everything otherwise.
Any parting thoughts you want to give? I have a couple, just some things I want to get off my chest.
You go first. I need to like breathe.
I I've been on F1 Twitter long enough now. Everyone needs
Oh
to
no.
lighten. I'm not saying it, don't
Oh,
worry.
okay.
Everyone needs to just relax. Why is everyone on European F1 Twitter so self-serious?
It's so true though.
Like, lighten up, joke around a little bit.
It's like they embody it as if they are the drivers themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like you're personally attacking them, or because you have a different opinion. Like you have very different opinions on mixed performance than I do, but I don't I don't leave here, in tears. So I don't know.
I don't,
Very
and like
intense.
I'm very on NBA Twitter, and it's so
Mhm.
different. It's so different. It's pretty lighthearted. Like,
Okay.
people know how to joke around, and like if someone makes like a harsh joke, they don't, no one clutches their pearls like, oh my goodness, like, that man has a family. Shut up.
Are people as negative though towards
Yes.
NBA players? Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
I know people do say pretty rough things against some of the other drivers pretty
they
often.
they are as negative, I will say
Okay.
that, which is not a good thing. It's not a
No.
good thing, but like, people take it more in stride. Like, I
Mm.
feel like if I see an insult to an F1 driver on Twitter, someone's always like, oh, well, you got to think about, he's a good guy, this for family values, like, what does the world come to? Like, relax, it's a tweet. Where, like, if you
Yeah.
see that about an NBA player, everyone's just kind of like, you
Yeah.
know. I don't know,
Like your
that's
thoughts.
all.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's a really good point. I know. I think I've started to steer. I think that's also partially why, especially when it comes to the break check social medias, Twitter is the one that I struggle to like be the most interactive on, because it's difficult to participate in these conversations when you feel like anything you say, people will legit throw hands at you, and or
Yeah.
and it's difficult to like,
I
where's the line? I mainly just make jokes on my own personal ones, so
I
then
I
we'll just
have
leave it there.
I have trouble, and I've had trouble on F1 social media, because I mean, like, you've known me for a while. I not that I talk crudely, but like, I think I just joke around a little bit differently than
Yeah.
everyone on F1 social media. Like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
like pointed and direct,
Mhm.
and I it just doesn't really mix the best. So I have not quite had the experience maybe of like talking with people online about F1, just because I just don't really know how to do it. And maybe that's on me too, but
Mhm.
I
I
don't know.
mean, yeah, you just have to find when and where. It's all about like when to say
Yeah.
something, I guess.
I
Like,
I do think it's partially like the American culture thing, not
yeah,
quite fitting
that
in.
too.
Yeah.
That too. Yeah. Also, I feel like a lot of the participants on F1 Twitter are fairly young, or like at least younger than us. I would say the
Yeah,
average age is younger than us. So I think just that maturity level too has a little bit
that's true.
of
Yeah.
influence.
Yeah,
But
I'm 26.
you're gonna be what, 20? No, you turn
No.
27 next year. Yeah, you
Mhm.
just turned 26.
let's see, before we go, do you have any flaming F1 takes that you just have been thinking about? Like just flaming hot, like borderline rubbish that you've just been thinking quietly?
I wouldn't rank Checo in the top 10 drivers. Or at the very, I would put him at like 10, maybe.
Name 9 better. No, we're doing this. Name 9 better.
Okay, well, Lewis, of course, Max, Leclerc, Sainz, George, Lando, Alonso, Vettel, and I mean, I think Ocon and him could be pretty fairly even. Actually, I know I'll put him at 9. I'll put him at 9 and then put
career
Ocon at
or
10.
currently?
Currently on the grid.
Oh man, Seb is not better than Checo currently.
Yeah. Oh no, I just
neither is
Alonso.
Neither is Alonso.
Okay, sorry. I meant more of just like the last few years, I would say. Like if you're looking at overall performance.
If it's the last, I don't know about all that. I mean, Checo doesn't dive bomb into people every time that there's a tight turn on a track. Better than George at that.
Okay, I'll give you that. I mean,
I think that there is healthy debate to be had about like 5 or like 5th to like 8th and 9th. Yeah. Because I think the two older champions, Seb and Fernando, are I think that they're not what they were even remotely, but they're still very good and very competitive. I think there's and then I think obviously George, younger, inexperienced, still kind of makes some mistakes.
Same with Lando.
Same with Lando. I don't think Lando is better than Checo.
I do, but that's a
Checo has won races in not.
Okay, but look at the car that Lando is in. Lando's the only driver not in a Red Bull or Mercedes to have a podium this year.
I'm pretty sure Checo's done that before too, in like a Force India.
No.
Regardless,
maybe I don't know.
I think the only ones clear of him are
everyone
Max,
else in the top
Charles,
3.
Carlos, Lewis. Yeah. I think George is where the conversation starts.
I don't know. I think George is still ahead of Checo. Like I said, like if I was to take the top 3 teams and rank the 6 drivers, Checo would be at the bottom in my ranking.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
But hey, this is a conversation for the other people too. If you have thoughts on that, maybe don't attack me personally, but if you would disagree on my thoughts,
there's not enough Mexican people on Twitter talking about F1 to attack you personally.
That's fair.
I think it's just me.
Fair enough.
Me and my cousins there. Yeah.
Do you have any hot takes?
Yeah, I think if either one does, I think Carlos will win a World Driver Championship before Charles.
Ooh. Honestly, I can kind of see. I don't think that's like out of question, you know?
Charles has a little. He has okay, does he have a little bit of trouble overtaking?
A little bit.
Like a hair. Like if he comes up on a driver who can do some defense, he like kind of has some trouble. He's like,
oh, gotcha. Yeah. No, I think it takes him a little bit more to kind of like pick it up versus he's not like the most forwardly aggressive.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
so
like he can be, but he's like in a nice way.
Trying to think if I've knew it. That's like my main one. I think Charles is such a fast driver and such like a unique talent. But he's a little bit like, and I think I've mentioned this, he's a little bit like extremely coddled. Like he is extremely coddled.
Even by his fans.
Yes. It's like every world driver champion at some point has had to overcome their car and their team.
Yeah.
And like show that they're a champion driver. So I don't resign. That's not the right word to use there. I don't buy into the Ferrari owes him this, Charles deserved this.
Yeah.
He does a little have to be like, no, we're doing this now, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But to me, that's like Formula One in itself, right? Like to me, and I've made that argument when it comes to the championship last year. Like, there's no, it should be Lewis's. No, it's Max's. Regardless of the situation, Max won. Like, yes, like there are things that like could have impacted it or changed it, but at the end of the day, he won. That's like Formula One. You can't just like say, oh, well, the best driver has it, because calls change the outcome, like the calls that they were doing in the race. That's what helped Max win. It wasn't just Max's drive. It was also the calls this team were making, and they were making it before Mercedes did, and it ended up working out in Max's benefit. So it's like, and sometimes you can't predict people crashing, like Cuff Latifi. Like you just
Oh my
can't.
God.
So like,
can you believe that all that happened because Latifi crashed?
just the whole, yeah.
Unreal. Oh, Latifi's racing IndyCar next year.
Is it confirmed? I saw the
Yeah.
rumor.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sick. I haven't
Yeah.
been on social media much. I really don't know.
I turned off my social media notifications because I want to be on my phone less. My
Mhm.
screen time went down 5 hours last week.
I need to try that, because holy crap. That's such a that's 5 hours. Like I think mine right now is at like 7 or 8 hours, which I think is far too much.
That's generally what I was at.
Yeah. So I think, especially like winding down before night, because I should be going to bed. I used to go to bed at like 10 p.m. and it was bliss. And
Yeah.
now it's been like 11:30 because I'm just on TikTok and I need to like set these times.
Mexican Grand Prix next week.
Yeah.
Any predictions?
Yeah. I think Checo will be in the top 3 again. I don't think he'll actually, you know what? I think Checo will win.
I think he'll
I'll
win.
give it
I
to him.
think he took his penalty this weekend to have a
Yeah.
fresh I think, was it power unit? I think
Yeah.
he something that they want new on his car, primed after a race for Mexico.
Plus, he should have won last year, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So I think this is kind of giving it back to him this year.
Yeah, I think they'll do everything in their power to have Checo win. Both the drivers and the constructors are locked up.
Mhm.
Max broke the race win record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's already locked up. What, he was at 13, wasn't he?
Or was it? I think 13 is the tie. No, the 13 is the tie with
Oh,
Vettel
okay.
and Schumacher. So now if he wins any more, which yeah, so he'll now break the title.
I
Or
think
the
I
yeah.
think they'll give Checo the win.
Yeah. Also, they called this out during the race yesterday that Max has now 33 wins in his career, which is the same amount of wins from all American drivers combined. And my original intro was going to be, and that's how many we'll have once Logan leaves F1.
As
But
long
I
as
didn't want to
Sargeant,
lead with that.
he's never gonna win a race. You kidding
Well,
me?
you don't know. I mean, it could happen.
I
Latifi got points this year, which I never thought would happen. So,
don't bring it up. I don't want to buy merch. I always forget Ocon won a race.
oh yeah, I know. What a random one to win, but good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Checo will win. Unless Mercedes keeps figuring it out.
Yeah.
Also, one last parting thought.
Okay.
George and Lewis, right?
Mhm.
George, there's been this talk of, oh, George is having such a great year, which he is. He's been
Mhm.
impressive. He's having a great year. And then there's also talk of, oh, George is better than Lewis this year. Has George beat Lewis when Lewis doesn't like DNF or is trying something weird on the car?
Yeah, a few times. But I
Has
think
he?
yeah, not not a significant amount of times. I would say that they're pretty even in terms of performance this year.
Okay.
And that's accounting for Lewis's,
Right.
trying with the car. Also, you have to take into consideration Lewis had pretty much the same car for years, and it's probably harder for him to adjust to something he
That's
was
true.
used to when he also is older. He's like what, 37, and
Yeah.
George and I had said younger drivers are going to be able to adjust easier because they haven't had as much time with these things. So it's genuinely not surprising he's having maybe a better year than people expected from Lewis, but I wouldn't say he's having necessarily, you know.
Is his car made out of bricks? How does it not break when he has taken like 7 people out this year? He just ends a team's race for the day and just keeps going.
Man, I don't know.
It's tough.
It's tough.
That's all I
Well,
got.
that's all I got. Yeah. We'll be back same time next week for the Mexican Grand Prix recap.
Follow us at Break Check F1 on all socials.
Yeah, we'll be posting, we'll be active, we'll be chatting. So check it out.
Bye.